And hello again! Alright, in this tutorial what I want to do is build some sprite sheets, or perhaps at least call it that, but really the purpose is to have a couple of different views of the same object. In fact, that object, if I look at it over here, is an elephant rendered into a couple of different positions, all on the same model in the model room, in the model area. So, or it could be in the scene. It doesn't matter so much. What we want to do essentially is have different vantage points, different orientations, from the side, from the angle, from the front, maybe some from the top, some from the back, like this one here. And the idea is to just have one model done. We will create another tutorial to show how that elephant was done, how it was created. In fact, I think I have it here somewhere there in Animator. So we will have a look at that as well to see how to model this out of one cube, just one object, one cube, to extrude and turn this into an elephant, kind of a cartoony looking elephant, but still with a nice mean look, and sockets for the eyeballs. We could still add some eyeballs there too. There's a little tail here on the upper part. There's some legs. Those are coming out really nice. And there is kind of a trumpeter kind of snout there. We could probably add a mouth. You know, there's a lot more we could add there too, and then also do some texturing and coloring and stuff. But the idea is, you know, once we have this and we want to create a scene in which we have a bunch of these images, a bunch of these elephants showing, we could as well just render them like this and then assemble them into an animated brush, or even just a single brush. So we can have a mask, a selection mask rendered out, and that's the one that you see here. In fact, we would probably invert it so that the white part is inside the elephants, that's the selected part. And then in Dog Waffle, we would take that these images masked out and start painting with that. So let's see how we go in Animator. And basically, we have this one object, and I'm in the object room. And as you can see, this was created as a subdivision surface object out of a cube that I tessellated into a couple and then started and convert them to subdivide. So it is already subdivided. You can see if you go and edit facets and edges, it still has that construction cage. That's the coarse, the nature of the coarse outline, or the scaffolding, I like to call that. And you can still go and edit vertices and facets. So if you select a facet like this one here and right click, you know, select a few of these facets, you could do some additional extrusions. Remember, if you have this extrusion, each of these facets go on their own, and that would be great for a little mohawk there. But you could also use this extrusion where they stay connected, and then you get something. That's what I did actually for the ears over here on the side, so they stay connected as I'm extruding them. And likewise, you can also edit the vertices. So if you select, for instance, let's say vertex mode, if you select this vertex here and right click to add this one, then you can move these around with the move tool here, and that gives it perhaps some additional backbones there, hip bones, so you can flex them down a little bit, and that sort of thing. So this is fun for really refined editing of a nice organic looking shape, where you, however, only need to control a few very basic shapes. Like for instance, here I'm now on the edge mode, and I'm clicking this here to go and select maybe this one, and right click here. So that way we have the whole row of lines selected there. And again, you can go and move this up, move it down, and do some nice little adjustments. All right, so back in the main object selection mode, click it, double click it in fact, if you want to see it coarser. The subdivisions by default, while we work with it, is fairly coarse still, and you can make that much higher quality, give it 5 for instance, or 5 here for the final render as well, and then that way it's a nice smooth subdivided surface. And so we could go and now render that, and we have a single render. Perhaps we'll do that at 800 by 800 pixels, and on a black background, or maybe a green or a blue if you want to do some blue screen or green screen composition later on. let's try black first, and let's see what else. Let's do just the image with anti-aliasing, and there you go. So one thing you could do here is just save that and then render again, but this time render the alpha channel. In fact, you can do both at the same time. So you have the alpha and the image, the color channel there, and at that point you can say, well, show me the alpha channel or show me the color channel, and either one of those you can save. So you can save this one, the color channel, and then you can also, and make sure you save it perhaps this time as a BMP file. If you save it as a JPEG, you'll get a little bit of noise along the edges. Remember, it's not, JPEG is not a lossless format, so you'll get a little bit of fuzziness along the edges when there's sharp contrast from bright to dark. So it's probably good to save it as a BMP file, and you see that as an option here, BMP by default. So that's the one I would use to keep it truthfully saved. And let's do that. Let's go and save this one. Let's see, where do we want to save that? That would be rendered, and that would be our elephant. Elephant. That's the second attempt for me for do elephant. So I'll call that elephant 2, and that'll be a BMP. All right, and BMP, and save that. All right, and then so that was the alpha channel, and then we'll go to the color channel and render that, save that one as well. Right, and so that means, of course, we need to perhaps have changed this. This one here was the alpha channel, so let's call it 2A, 2A as in alpha, right? And then we'll call this one that we are about to save now the color channel, so that will be the 2C. All right, so we have two files representing separately the color channel and the alpha channel. Now, I wanted that really on a whole bunch of these elephants, not on just this one. So that's really the focus of this tutorial, is to take this elephant over here to the side. So make sure you select it. Maybe you make it a little bit smaller. Let's use the scale tool. That's the shortcut S. So let's start using the shortcuts. S for scaling, and make it a little bit smaller. Right? And then M for moving, and drag it over here. And then A would be for selecting if you had not selected it first. So if you were off here and you were on the move tool before, you can use A for selection, click it, M for moving, there it is, and you say, oh, it's still a little bit too big, let's make it scale it down. So S for scaling, and then perhaps R for rotation. All right, so and what we'll do is we'll give it a couple of different orientations. Let's have one like this, and then use Control C for copying, right? Under the edit menu here, Control C, right? And then also Control V, or from the edit menu, Control V for pasting. So we now have a duplicate copy here. Let's do M for move, and we'll move the duplicate copy over here. And then R for rotation. Give it a little bit of a rotation like so. And make sure it's not overlapping here. So let's move it again a little bit more. Let's give it some nice space around it, so the elephants can individually be standing in their own cells here, and in their own little private space. And then we can go do another Control C, Control V to copy it. And you see that one we can move. We're still in the move tool. Let's scale it a little bit bigger. And not that big. And then move it and rotate it. R for rotation. And this one will go like so. All right, so I'm doing a sort of a layout in what we might call a sprite sheet, which is basically something used in game industry also, for bitmap games in particular, for bitmap graphics, when you have perhaps a walk sequence or an explosion sequence. In this case, it's just a bunch of individual, kind of randomly looking sequence. It's not even consistent because I do sudden jumps in size, orientation, and positions. But what we'll do is we'll do another one, Control C, Control V. This one is still in rotation mode, so let's make sure we'll move it, and this one we'll move it down here. And we'll do another rotation, R for rotation. Let's give it a nice side view, a little bit smaller, S for size. There you go. And so on. So let's do two more, Control C, Control V, M for move. And let's give him a rotation that goes the other way. So let's oh yeah, why not have one upside down? Let's give it like so, and then Control C, Control V. That will be the last one to move over here, and we'll rotate them something like so. All right, so the idea is just to have different orientations. Doesn't matter. You decide which way you want them oriented. They may be similar. They may be kind of in a sequence. The idea is just to have them each in their own little space. And as we render that now, and perhaps we'll Control A to select them all, and then M for move, and we'll move the whole thing a little bit into the middle. All right. So as we render this, we can go here to render. And do a quick test render this time. Let's do it fast first without anti-aliasing and just the image, right? And so here we go. That's what we want to do. And we want to render that into both the color channel like so, and then the alpha channel as well. So let's go and actually we're pretty much ready. So let's go and render the image with anti-aliasing and image and alpha channels. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 2000 times 2000 and okay that. So this render now, well, there's still a lot of space around it, the black part, but the selection we have here, the color channel is great, the alpha channel is there, we can save them each. Okay, so alpha channel, let's go save that, and that will be here in this area. We'll call this elephant 3A, so it's, or 6, because there are 6 elephants in that. So that's elephant 2, 6 of them alpha. All right, and then we also do the same thing with the color channel. Save, again select the name, and this time we'll have the same name here, but instead of A it will be color channel. And let's see what we got with that. Save that. All right, so we've got this, and now it's time to go over to whatever your image program or your paint program is, and of course I'm going to use Dog Waffle here. So let me fire up Dog Waffle wherever I hide it. There it is, and this is actually version 8.2, still in alpha, still under development, so not fully released yet. Might also have a couple of glitches here or there. Let's go and fit it into our capture area, something like this, and let's see. All right, so we have a color channel that we need to load, and we have a alpha channel. These are 2 separate image files that we saved in Animator. So one thing we can do is we can load the first one. Let's go and open the image. That's let's see. I think it's in the other on the other drive. It's on my E drive. Animator. Is it under Pix? No. Is it under rendered? Yes. Alright, so here they are. It's this one and this one, right? So this one is the alpha. I'm going to grab the alpha first. And there it is. Right, now I need to invert it. If I store this as a mask, selection store alpha, it's going to show, well, there's nothing, because this is not actually in the alpha channel right now. I loaded this as an image. Even though it's intended for the alpha channel, I loaded it as an image, as a regular black and white image. So it's in the color channel. I need to transfer that into the alpha. We've seen how to do that. One way is you go to alpha and you pretend there is something in alpha, even though we know there isn't right now. So we just store it. And then we'll say, well, that's not what I wanted, but we can use this little interface to say get alpha, get a buffer, get the image buffer. When we do that, then you grab a copy of what's in the image buffer and put that straight into the stored copy here. And this stored copy we can now force back by replace into the alpha channel of our program. All right, so now we have the marching ants going along there. You could also perhaps first invert it, right? And that's really what we want, because we want the elephant selected, and white indicates for Dog Waffle, white indicates that it is selected. Black is not selected. Black is transparent. And so we replace it, and now we have that. We can go here with alpha overlay, and it should turn pink where it's not selected, and that's out there. Right, so the color channel was actually inverted relative to what we needed it. The alpha channel we saved from Animator was inverted, because in Animator it's called a transparency, whereas for us it's really the opposite of it. It's opacity, and the opacity is maximum where we want to see the elephants. All right, so we've got the alpha channel there. Now we can also load the image, and for that we'll go here. Perhaps, you know, there's a couple of ways we can do that. Let's use this method. Let's Let's go open. Well, let's try the same one. Okay, this might actually just replace and get rid of the alpha, but we have the alpha stored, so we're ready to put it back in place. So let's go select the color channel, and this will lose the information. Yep, sure enough, the alpha has been wiped out because we have now created a new image with this just loaded, but we still have the stored alpha, and that's why it's so important or so handy to actually do that. So now we have the image. We know it's the same dimensions, and it was rendered in the same time as the alpha image. So since we have that stored image here, let's go and replace the alpha, and boom, it matches this perfectly. So we now have reassembled the alpha and the color channel into a single 32-bit scenario. So that 32-bit scenario we can work with. And now in Dogwaffle, each of those elephants needs to become a single brush, custom brush. All right, so this is how we'll do that. We'll simply go to the brush menu and use selected as brush. But if we do that, it will pick everything, every selection there, and so it will have a custom brush that has everything in there at the same time, all these 6 elephants. Let's give that a try. You see now in the preview, if preview is enabled and opacity perhaps at maximum, it did use the alpha channel. It does use it. You can clear the image in the background, and that's cool. And you can paint with that now. But we have all 6 elephants always side by side, and that's probably not what we intended. So what I'll do instead is, first of all, go back to this, and one more step, so we have the alpha. And also one thing is store the image. Just like we store the alpha, we want a stored copy of the image buffer so that we can quickly get back to that if we need to. And tell you this, we will need to. We often experiment and find we went the wrong way, so let's try something. Let's step back 2 or 3 levels. All right, so let's disable this preview. Now what I want to do is pick this one, the first elephant in the upper left corner, but just that one. So we have this custom brush pickup tool, right? Instead of going to brush Control B, you just use the shortcut B without the control. That's this one here, custom brush selector tool. And what that does is allow you to indicate a rectangular area, like a marquee selection, that will pick up, and it will use the alpha channel found in that region. So use B as a shortcut if you have the keyboard focus on it, and then you can go and say, for instance, select this much, right? So that now I pick up as a custom brush, and I'm done. It didn't clear the alpha here, but it's in the custom brush. I can go to preview, and sure enough, I've got it here in my custom brush. Now I want to store that, so brush, store and manage the copy. This is one image of an elephant in a custom brush with transparent background. Perfect. Now let's do that again. Let's do it on this one. Right? Turn off the preview if that bothers us. It's actually not necessary, because the moment we choose the marquee, the custom brush selection tool, it's going to go away. So let's go do that. Click here and select this one. And that's why, by the way, it's important that these elephants are not overlapping and they're not too close, so we can actually have a nice little margin around them without picking the ear or the trunk or the tail from the neighboring elephants. All right, let's select this. We've got that. And we can store that one as well. So we can store and manage a second custom brush. We now have 2 custom brushes of 2 different elephants. And let's do one more. Control, that would be just B for selecting, B. And we'll get this one here in the upper right corner. That's relatively big. And so on. All right, so we could do that, but we really want to build a custom brush in which all of the, let's store this one here. Okay, so we got 3 elephants so far. And we could paint with one, and then paint with the next one, and then paint with the next one. And we just pick the one here. Click it, you got this one to paint with. Click this one, you got this one to paint with. Click this one, and you got... So you just pick that. But what we really want to do, I think, is to have a single brush containing all 6 images in a sequence, an animator brush. All right, so what we'll do is we'll say, for instance, we'll pick one more. We'll say this one, and pick this. All right. This one we will store. That will be our starting point. So we want to have this one as the first image. Brush, store, and manage. Then we say, well, let's go pick this guy, and that is right here. We had done that before. We could actually go to the stored copy of it, but let's say we start from scratch. So we pick this guy, and instead of storing it by itself like we did over here, right? Instead of storing it here, what we'll do is we'll add it to this stored copy. This one we stored, this one here we stored here, and we can add a frame. This current frame we now have as a current custom brush. We can add it to this. How many frames are in this one right now? Well, there's just one. This is a one image custom brush. Let's show it actually. There's a show film strip here that will show us the frame. That's the one right there. Well, but this one here that's looking to the other side, to the right side, we can add that frame. And when we do that, we now have a second image here. Notice it's not the same size because I manually picked the region. The marquee selection was a manual procedure, a manual process. So it's a little bit different in size, and they are just centered, and you may see a little bit of white margin around it, but it's not going to bother us once we start painting. It's not going to see that. Now, the next thing we'll do is we'll pick one more. Right, so we'll go here and set B to select this one. Right, or perhaps this one we had not done yet, this one that's upside down. Let's do this one, B to select this one, and once again after we've selected it we can add that one. So we now have what, 2 frames. We're going to add a frame. We now have 3 frames. Okay, so this is now a custom brush that's animated because we have a sequence of frames, a sequence of images, and when we paint it will go from the first to the second to the next and cycle back to the first and so on. And now we actually have some of these already stored, like this one here, the big one. That one was stored already, and we can just click it to make it the current brush activated, so to speak, and then we can add it to this one as well. All right, so we now have 4 of these. That's the biggest one. That's why it doesn't show a white border. All the others were adjusted there now. Now we go to one more. This one here we did not pick yet. So I think, oh, and then this one we did pick, and we can actually use this as well. So let's add that. Add frame, and we need a 6th one. We have 5 so far in our custom brush. We have one more. This one we'll need to pick. We did not pick this one yet. All right, so let's move this aside. In fact, you know what? We can close this. We don't need these copies anymore. Let's go and pick this one. So that would be B for brush, and select this one, and that will be like so. So now we can add this last one, and there we go. So now we have a custom brush containing 6 images of the elephants. What does it look like when we paint? Well, for one, right now it paints only through the alpha channel. As I'm painting here, as you can see, it's masked through that selection. So we'll want to get rid of that mask. This we can minimize. This we can minimize. So we'll need to clear this. If we clear it, it clears the color channel, but not the alpha channel here. Right? So it still only paints through the enabled portion of the mask. And what we need to do really is clear. Control D is a shortcut you can use on the keyboard, or you can go through the selection and clear alpha. Right, so now you paint all over. And that's really why we call it a custom animated brush, because that image sequence, even though here it looks very random as you're painting with it, and let me increase the step a little bit so they're farther apart. You see here I need to move a little bit further now, but it's basically cycling through that, and after 6 images you can see it recycled to the same 6 image. So let's see here. Look for instance for the one that's showing our butt here. It's looking backwards, the big one, the big elephant. You see it once here and then see it again here and then once again here. And so that's basically the custom animated brush, or we call that an anim brush as well sometimes. And so here's how we would use that. You know, if we have a whole slew, a whole army of elephant inside our brush, it's really neat because we can paint. Let's say we start with filter, render. Where's my render? There it is. Render sky. Right. And let's just not waste too much time here, and then go to the particle brushes and add a little bit of. Let's do a tree first here. Foliage. And use, I don't know, let's take one of the classic trees here, and perhaps some others back here. Actually, I want a big tree. Let's load something different. I don't know which size there are. Don't use this often enough. Let's use this. And then we have particles. That's going to do the grass. And so here we go and load baddie grass. There you go. And on the baddie grass, we do something like the savanna grass here. All right. There you go. And now, of course, we need a whole army of elephants clobbering all over that. All right, so we pick our custom brush is still here. Pick that. Now the brush is still, the Optipoustic setting shows that this is still enabled, so we need to disable that. Otherwise, your elephants are not going to look much like elephants. It's still drawing the grass. So undo this, uncheck that, so it can go back to the regular brush. click your custom brush to select it, and now you have the custom brush. You can preview it if you have that PRV enabled, right? And you can confirm. Now it's too big. We want some small elephants all the way in the background there. So what we'll do is we'll resample it here. We'll say let's grab a small version, and also change the hue. Now this is a black and white or grayscale. It won't change the hue. There is no hue. It's just monochrome or black and white gray. But what we can do is change the saturation or the values. Saturation won't make a difference either. But the value we can make them a little bit darker. We can make them brighter. Let's make them darker for farther away, and then gradually as we make them bigger, we'll also make them brighter. So farther away, a little bit darker, and that's the right size. And then you see, well, there are really too many of them here. So undo that. We need to have the step distance a little bit bigger. We also probably want to have random position, because right now they're still following exactly my path, right? So sometimes that's great. Sometimes that makes it predictable. But if you look at the settings for your brush, you can give it some random position. So that way it's not totally exactly there. And you can also add some random scale or speed scale. But keep in mind that size and rotation is compute intensive. So if you do some random size or also random angle, that will further rotate these images of the custom brush. Keep in mind that that won't happen for a custom brush unless you go to the custom brush and allow the custom brush transforms, right? Positioning is not an issue. That one happens automatically because it doesn't take a whole lot of time. But rotation and scaling, random rotation and random scaling, that certainly does take time. And by default, we don't enable it. So it's your choice. And then now here we'll go a little bit larger. Next one here. Oops, hold on. That's off screen. Let's go here. Scale and rotate. So we'll make it a little bit bigger. We'll have them at, let's say, 80 or so. And then we have also the brightness there, the value a little bit higher as they come closer. And so now we have a second row of elephants. And then we have one last one. And now here's interesting too, is we might want to have a particular elephant. Well, let's do one more here first at about almost 100 there. And you can go by exact increments here. All right, and then so here we'll go even brighter. There you go. And so we have a couple here. All right, so this scene is starting to look like it's got a little bit of perspective with the size changes, with the brightness change. But we want one more that's really big, and that will be this first one. So how do we make sure that our custom brush is starting with that first image? All right, and we'll make it really big. We'll actually supersize it here. And we'll go over here to make it even brighter, and like so. All right. So how do we make sure that our elephant, when we paint it, is actually showing this image? Okay, well, first of all, we don't want the random orientation, but every time I click it, it's actually starting with that image. Oh, but if I move too far, then it's going to the next ones. So here's the thing. You can actually force it to a different one. What you can do is you can go to Brush, Anim Brush, and you can say, go to first frame on mouse down. So that way you can make sure that when you click, it's always starting with that first image. And there's just one more thing to do, and that would be to, you know what, perhaps we want to even supersize it beyond that. Let's go to Brush, resample it, right, and make it really big. So now this image is starting to look horrendously large. It's actually doing that on the entire animator brush. And so we can perhaps move it right here, cover the other one in the background there, or we can have, we still have the randomness to it. Let's go settings and disable the random positions there. Settings, disable the transform, so no size and scale, and no rotation, but also random position. I want it really where I'm stamping it down. So that's different from painting. You want to stamp it down in a precise position. Don't let it do randomness stuff, a random position. So now you have basically this one right there. All right, and that concludes this little demo. We have started in Animator, created an elephant. We will do a separate tutorial on how to model that elephant, by the way. But I wanted to show you how you take that now into a sequence of different positions and then grab each of those manually. Now there's also an automated way to do that if you have properly positioned them along a grid of equal spacing. That's really what we call a sprite sheet. And that's also sometimes a contact sheet. And we will look at that. There are tools in Dogwaffle that allow you to take a contact sheet or a sprite sheet and convert it to an animation. Right? And then there's a similar tool that does the opposite, so we'll play with that as well. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.